Hey, and welcome to ARATI Kadav, the director of The Astronaut and His Parrot. Hello, Arti. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm excited to talk to you all. And as I said, I love the logo. I love the new graphics on the logo. So very excited to talk to you also. Yeah.
No, and thank you so much for that compliment. I mean, coming from you, who is very visually focused in terms of filmmaking, I'll take that as the highest compliment. So thank you so much. I'll convey this to the person who designed the graphics. I think he'll be chuffed.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yes.
And first of all, I think you've been on a roll. It's the film has been doing so well on the festival circuit. It's winning awards left, right, and center. It's the best Asian short, and
Mm.
it also you were the best director as well at the Fantasia
Mm.
International Film Festival. So
Yes.
a double whammy, being a best director and also the best Asian short. How does it
Yes.
feel? What's the feeling like?
No, it's very exciting. And when you make something like this and in the resources or in whatever, we were experimenting in terms of storytelling. We were experimenting in every possible way. So even when we are jumping into the shoot, I thought this was one of those shoots where I wouldn't know by the end of it if I would have a good film because, of the free fall of the astronaut or the talking parrot. So there were so many variables at hand, and all the variables are more or less out of your control, and we are also constrained by the amount of time we can shoot, because the crew has come together for this. So I was very nervous about it, but I'm glad that we were very the crew genuinely worked very hard. So all these awards just gives them a boost, and we also feel very positive that yeah, let's do more, let's make more films as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so before we delve into the film, I mean, by the way, love the title, The Astronaut and His Parrot. I mean,
Thanks.
just listening to that title, you just want to watch the film. So it's a fantastic title. But before we get into the film itself, I wanted to touch upon some of your broader thematic concerns that you seem to keep coming back to over and over again. Because I saw your first shot, The Time Machine, which was on Mubi
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously saw Cargo and then saw 55 kilometers per second. And now we have Astronaut and the Parrot. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something very interesting about the genre of sci-fi which you've really tapped into, which is sci-fi in its essence is mostly about grief, loneliness, and actually wanting to
Mm-hmm.
find a genuine connection in a
Mm-hmm.
world where we're getting more and more disconnected. And
Mm-hmm.
more than just loneliness, I think you keep coming back to male loneliness, which is a very
Mm,
specific format. As
mm,
a filmmaker from a female lens, how does
mm,
it sort of differentiate you looking at male loneliness? Because I think it's a fascinating aspect. I know Ad Astra with Brad Pitt,
mm.
the James Gray film, did it really well. But
Yes.
it's an aspect of sci-fi which I think is very integral to the genre, which doesn't get tapped into. When people think sci-fi, they think mostly androids, robots, and lightsabers and Star Wars. But this is
Mm.
something which is, I think, integral to the genre, which is philosophically more difficult to actually translate on screen.
Yes. No, actually, first of all, this is such a wonderful question because the patterns, so many times you think you're writing new stories, but you don't realize that thematically you're coming back to the same things. Only when someone like yourself, like actually zooms out and see patterns that you as a filmmaker also realize, oh my gosh, yeah, that's the pattern. That's the thing I'm always, those are the stories of mine that are invariably, I'm like very keen to translate on screen, and, or maybe I'm drawn towards myself. I think at the very fundamental level, maybe I was growing up, I was an introvert person, and was like a observer of the world around me. So for me that is there always. So maybe that something of that has remained. But also philosophically, I always want to understand, because our time on earth is temporary in general. So I try to make sense of why we are here, and I think this is a question a lot of artists are fundamentally obsessed with, that why are we even fucking
Yeah.
alive? What is the point of it all? So, and then we try to make sense of it through telling those stories. It's not that we have any answer. Maybe we are just asking those questions or finding, a forever moment. Like for example, in Cargo, my feature film, which is about the people who die come to a spaceship for transition, and it's like, and then someone, you wonder while you're watching that film, like what is remaining of you, because when you die, like you're like, there's no relationship that you're carrying forward, and still like nothing that you have really, all your possessions you have to let go of. But then the idea is, I try to say that maybe there's something that is there, like there's the that you leave behind, or what is forever. Is forever is genuinely in long period of time, or for one moment can also be a forever. So these are the things I try to kind of examine, like in 55 kilometer per second. And when you're saying that, I think maybe just the fact that he had that last call with the girlfriend just before the meteor hit Earth and everybody died. And I got a lot of feedback from people that why would you kill everyone? Why would you destroy Earth for this story? But yeah, but it's like, okay, maybe he found his forever, his the something in his life came to an end through that. So I think that's what I examined. Astronaut and Parrot, also it was like actually, when I thought of this story, I thought, let's make a 10-minute story of a man free falling through space. And what if he connects to someone who doesn't get what he's saying, and but still it's it could be an overlap between the fact that he's dreaming about the parrot, or it could be the fact that he actually connected to the parrot. And how do we like also take it forward and think maybe the parrot is there and dreaming about the astronaut. I mean, I don't know if that much came, but the idea is that what is the parrot's I think the place I live in Mumbai also, there are like, I can see parrots like hanging on the wires, and they're always chatting away. And I always wonder, what are they talking about? Like, are they actually talking, or are they just, so maybe just, start something called as something like a fable on that, like what is happening around the world. So it's essentially making sense of the world around us. And yeah, I think explorers in general are always a little bit lonely and are always searching for home, even if you're going far away. And I think that aspect of it that really interests me. So I mean, yeah, what you spoke about Ad Astra is like you're actually just searching for your father or something like that, right? And that's what we are also trying to do. And that's always there, that when you actually travel the world, you want to just find home. Like that's it, you want to find home. So that's the thing, like through the stories also I try to achieve.
And is there something more beneath the surface why you're particularly intrigued by male protagonists who are
You know,
lonely rather than female protagonists? Is
no,
this
I'm
this?
feeling bad that I'm I didn't realize that like till you actually pointed out. It's maybe that yeah, I think it's natural also, but I think because of this interview, maybe I'll have more female protagonists, exploring that.
Sorry,
So I
I
think
didn't want to
you
like
are the one
insert.
responsible, yeah.
I didn't
Because
want to
of
like
that,
I didn't want to
yeah.
insert something which you don't want to do. But yeah, okay, I'll take credit for
No,
that.
no, but that's true. Maybe I am thinking that, oh, sci-fi, because you're so used to seeing sci-fi stories with male protagonists, maybe subconsciously I'm choosing male protagonist over female protagonist, but there's no reason as such. Like I can maybe see through a female lens also, and I should. But I also, yeah, I guess when I'm writing those characters, I don't even see their gender. I'm just seeing there's some really deep emotions so closely that it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I could really very easily replace the male from the female. But yeah, I think there's this I think the urban loneliness is something that is very that I think is something we should address, all of us as artists and stuff. Like we are in a crowded place, but we're always lonely. And that's something that I always feel little yeah, concerned about overall. So yeah, I think that's also
So,
there. Yeah.
what have been the kind of major influences that have led you to this kind of world building? And especially, I
Hmm.
think, as you mentioned, you are particularly a fan of the slow burn sci-fi
Hmm.
genre more than the,
Hmm.
swashbuckling sci-fi. So I
Hmm.
guess, it is the philosophical exploration
Hmm.
excites you more than probably the fantasy adventure side of
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
So what would be those influences which particularly kind of fed into that kind of
Yeah.
world for you?
Yeah. No, actually, now I'm consciously trying to grow as an artist and also try to explore, more like the mainstream sci-fi, and try to see how I can bring my sensibility or this into that, because to just to grow in terms of as an artist and as a filmmaker. So that's there. But my early influences have been the fables of the subcontinent. So if you have grown up in India, there's a very rich mythological set of, which is an oral culture of telling stories. So of course there is the typical Mahabharata and Ramayana that we all heard of, but there are beyond that there are so many stories which are like, you know, how astronaut and parrot is. You know what the parrot talks to each other. I'll tell you a story about it. So it's a sort of like, you know, telling your grandmother's story, and that's what I want to do. But make it, just put them those stories in the spaceship, because I feel all these stories never got a chance to be rewritten or to be made contemporary in a way, or just reimagined in the current socio cultural situation. So, you know, like the Rakshasas or the demons live in the jungle, people live in the villages, and I'm like, oh, let them live in the city, let the Rakshasas or the demons live in the spaceship. So I try to just reimagine, and then I extrapolate that if they are doing that, will they have the same problems as us? Because any sci-fi story, you know, in general is trying to make sense of your time today, right now, whether it's set in real in the future or set in the past. It is about, you know, our realities today. So in general, yeah, so, and that was the whole idea also of the fables of the subcontinent. So that's where I get inspired from. So I grew up reading books called Panchatantra, if you were aware of, like a lot of those stories. And later on I did expose myself to a lot of science fiction writers from the West. I particularly, I'm a huge fan of Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
I really like his work, and because there's a sense of humor also about it. And then I have also started liking Ted Chiang, who's like, you know, the one who wrote Story of Your Life, which was made into a film called Arrival. So he
Yeah.
has, I love his stories. They are so precise, and this. In fact, after reading his stories, I was feeling inspired to even write my own stories, besides make films like. And so Louise Hickson and Ursula Gain, who is like a lovely writer. So these are my key influences. At the same time, apart in filmmakers, I love you know, Terry Gilliam's film really a lot, and Michel Gondry, because it is a you know, it's where it's everything is, the lines are not straight of their work. It's always curvy and messy, and I love that curvy and messy sci-fi. I like that, you know, something about it feels very personal, and you can see the fingerprints of the filmmakers. So I quite like that. So yeah.
There's something interesting that you brought up, and I'm just thinking that when you mentioned Panchatantra and the fable element of the subcontinent storytelling, I think a lot of us don't realize, people, you know, from the subcontinent background and us growing
Hmm,
up in India, that we are
hmm,
already kind of exposed to sci-fi from a very young age
hmm,
without the sci-fi label such.
hmm,
We are very, very kind of indoctrinated into fantasy and sci-fi,
hmm,
but we don't realize we're actually being
hmm,
exposed to that from a Western lens. So I
hmm,
think what you're doing with your story is, once you kind of bridge the gap between a Western sensibility of what sci-fi means for the West and
hmm,
what we have come to understand as sci-fi, because we've kind of grown up with it without
hmm,
that label, is
hmm,
that it's a very interesting kind of ingredient. So the ingredients are
hmm,
very yours, and it's very kind of very Indian, but the final recipe is still a mix of what is Indian and then
yes.
what Western audiences can identify as well. So it's a very interesting mix of both.
Yes, yes, yeah. I agree. And it's something that's my goal also, to make stories that you're adding to the sci-fi pool, because the amount of sci-fi stories West has explored is tough for an Indians. We are just starting out in sci-fi. So for us to match that up, we cannot do that, but we can come up with something that is our own and unique, and add to that pool of sci-fi stories, and everybody can enjoy through this, you know, cross-cultural exchange of ideas in general. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think as part of the challenge is that we haven't really, I mean, we as in subcontinent filmmakers haven't done only one specific genre cinema,
Hmm.
particularly, because we
Hmm.
have such a mishmash of genres in every
Yes.
film. We don't
Hmm.
stick to one genre for the entire film. So
Yeah.
for us to do that, I think it's a new experience. And for
Yeah.
audiences as well, to actually stay with one genre is also a learning
Hmm.
experience. So I think that element. So I can say that there are sci-fi elements in a lot of movies, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to classify a lot of Hindi films, for example, that I've seen as pure
Hmm.
sci-fi. You know,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
for even something as commercial and mainstream as Mr. India has
Hmm.
sci-fi elements, but it's
Yeah.
very hard to say that it's a pure sci-fi
Sci.
film. So
Right.
it's interesting to the sense that I guess the
Hmm.
genres have been explored for a
Hmm.
long time, but it's very difficult to say that we've stuck with one genre throughout a film, because the mainstream commercial cinema just focuses you to mishmash so many genres in one film, which is
Hmm.
also fun, I suppose, but it's
Hmm.
it's difficult to transition that into another audience who's used to one genre for one film.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And that's because the roots of Bollywood filmmaking was on Natya Shastra, which is also a text on Indian filmmaking, which says that you have to feel nine emotions, what we call as now rasa. So you have to feel the anger, you have to feel the happiness, you have to feel disgust. So you have to feel love and you have to feel longing. So this all they say a good story should have all nine emotions, and then that became also the roots to Parsi theater, where there were songs between acts, and that became the basis for Bollywood cinema. And that also is a very important part, influence for us culturally. Bollywood is the thing we go to. We don't go for hiking, we go to movie theaters, as we grow up,
Yeah.
so that's also, you can't take that away. So there will be musical interludes in our stories and stuff like that, because we're so used to it, yeah.
Let's get back to the astronaut and the parrot.
Hmm.
You're someone who I think visually, that sort of visual world building is so important for you. And I've
Hmm.
seen you kind of, share behind the scene videos of how your world building starts and then the story kind of almost emerges from that world. You
Hmm.
start with a spaceship and you build a small kind of
Hmm.
replica of a spaceship or that kind of world
Hmm.
itself, and then the story kind of starts to take shape from there. So how did the concept of this story and the world building start to then eventually take its final form?
No, what you so there were two things that happened when I was writing the story. One was, of course, I was very fascinated, just I thought, what is the the risk of making my protagonist's life really bad, but what will be the worst death one can have, the loneliest death? And it's like, what if a man is just dying alone in space? You see those videos where your oxygen is running out or whatever, and then nobody to hear you, and you start, and just the free fall of it, and just I just love the image that a man aware that I just have 10 minutes. It's tragic that you're going to die, but it's also so beautiful that you're dying in, the space and stuff like that. So it started from there. And then I wondered that, you know uh, at the same time we were going through COVID situation in India, where there was a lot of migrants crisis that was happening, where a lot of migrants were going back home. And they were because of COVID, a lot of transportation was shut down. Obviously, like planes, obviously they'll not be able to afford, but even the trains were shut down. There was a time when buses were not there, or everybody, there was a fear amongst them that there's no work, so let's go back to their villages. A lot of those people were walking back home, and there are so many tragic stories emerging from there, where a lot of people just, them died like on the way back, and not really knowing. So there's a very small, like, it's not that I didn't want it to make it so this about it, but there's a small line in the film where they says ki, this Dwarka, this colony is being made. And all my stories are kind of related, because I was writing a story on Dwarka where, a colony is being made or something like that. So I was thinking, what about an engineer who is going to Dwarka, and he's essentially a worker that way, right? He's just going to build that houses for maybe rich people to go and live, or more privileged people to go and live. And I didn't want him. So what if he's just going on the way, he dies, and really just a statistic, like, oh, the 10 people died. So it was just that, you humanize that statistic in a way. So it's not a very direct connection, but in one of the screenings, at least few people from India at least found that connection, that it was just a lonely death, but you also know that these people have uh, family back home and things like that. So it has that. But yeah, essentially that was also the thought. But yeah, but eventually it was back to the fact that in that he finds connection to someone whom he knows that is a gone case, like, parrot, like really will, you, it's like you get a straw while you're drowning, and the straw will not save you, but you still give it your best. So it was essentially that. So that thought was also there. Yeah.
So, at what point did you know that you had kind of got your protagonist ready in terms of, you knew that this is the kind of crisis that this person is going through, and this is what you need the audience to feel through the protagonist. So, what was
Hmm.
that most important thing for you that we need to take away once we kind of experience that? Because he's the astronaut.
Hmm.
And the parrot, I guess they're both protagonists in this story. They're equal protagonists, and they
Yeah.
need to help each other out in order
Hmm.
to for
Hmm.
the final end to come about. So,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
what point do you feel in these equal the two-hander that is happening, which is also
Yeah.
beautiful. That
Yeah.
I could never have thought that a parrot could play an equal two-hander in the story, and
Yeah.
its contribution is almost as important as someone who's
Yeah.
speaking. So,
Mm.
what was for you that I guess that kind of aha moment? You know, you're like, okay, I've got this. I know the kind of emotion that I need to strike here.
During the story writing, you mean, right? The writing
Yeah,
phase. Yeah. No, I think the fact that he connected to a parrot for me was the aha moment, because I was not being able to identify whom he will be able to connect to, because I did want him to connect to something, and I wanted him to have something, a father daughter relationship, that to be very strong. I was just not being able to understand, so I was going through a lot of things in the head, like, will he connect to this? And then I was like, how do and then I just hit upon that, why can't he connect to a talking parrot? And I didn't know what the conversation will be or what this, but at least at that point I knew that I wanted to commit to the fact that he connects to a parrot who will just repeat what he's saying. So that was the idea that kind of got me, that okay, the parrot is just saying, repeat what he's saying, and then can he find hope in that? So essentially that. So so just identifying the second character was a big deal for me. Yeah.
fair enough. There's
Mm.
something really interesting that you wrote on Twitter about being an indie filmmaker, which I wanted to touch upon. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of I know it's hard work, and you're all
Mm.
bootstrapped, and getting budgets is difficult, and so
Mm.
that's common knowledge. And I think it's the sad part of the world of being
Yeah.
an indie filmmaker. But there's also a
Yeah.
very thankful kind of gratitude of the kind of talent that you're able to access. And
Yes.
I think this kind of duopoly about, yes, you are cash strapped and you don't have the funds and the resources, but people still come together to help you out. Can you just
Mm.
elaborate a bit on that? Because that kind of interplay was really
Mm.
interesting, and it gave me a lot of perspective on what it
Mm.
would be like for people to actually, like, really talented people who can charge you a bomb and actually be selfish and not
Mm.
help you, still
Mm.
giving up their time and effort to actually come and
Yes.
help you and create a
Yeah.
community of filmmakers. And actually, it's
Yeah.
basically about that, about how a community helps one filmmaker and each other basically to move forward.
Yeah. True. No, so what you said is so right, because I was trying to professionally put together a film. It was some other film. And then I realized that, oh my God, these guys have such really high fees, and I never asked them. Like, and then, I think sometimes a film can exist also because they are made independently. And science fiction in general required a high technical skill set in general, like, because you require VFX artists. You require a cinematographer who understands green screen and the challenges of shooting with a green screen. So you require a good sound designer, because almost everything is fake or cardboard. So you require all these very talented people, and they've always been very helpful to me. So I've always, I realized that I should, instead of, and in my interviews I also tended to sort of focus on the fact that, oh, we didn't have the budget, so we did this, we didn't. But I just realized, but I still was very rich going into the shoot, because I had this really genius people, the best in the industry. Like, most of my crew are either national award winners, or and them, like, really being fuss free and helping me with all their love. And even the studio support for that matter, because even the astronaut in Parrot, the astronaut I've shot in a huge studio, very huge studio, which I got because of generosity of Raul Puri, who's the co-producer of the film. He's like, ah, yeah, just take it, like, take it for your 3-4 days that you need, like, and anyway, we are all dying of COVID, so just shoot, like, So, but that's, so I have to be very thankful for this support, because if I would actually go out to rent those, it will be even more expensive. So yeah, there is a dichotomy that what is missing is the cash component. Nothing else is missing: the passion, the joy, the enthusiasm, and even the the desire to be precise with the craft that comes with the skilled team that I have. That is also there, because sci-fi it's a very slippery slope. If you start compromising on your film, you suddenly it will start looking fake. That what you call a suspension of belief, that will not happen if anywhere, if people see a crack in your film. So that yeah, so I'm very grateful that my team has always been there. and gone out of the way. Like the amount of efforts we did for the helmet, because that's the other challenge in India, because no sci-fi films are made. There's no one who knows how to make a proper astronaut costume, or nobody knows how to make a helmet. Imagine, it's a big
Really? Okay.
country. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to really, like, I've got so many these spheres, transparent acrylic spheres. And my VFX designer, his father, he went to some guy who had cut the sphere in half. So his father is also getting involved, and we're all really grown people. We are like late 30s, 40s people, but we're involving our dads for this kind of work. And then he's like, yeah, because his father is a good architect. Then he's like, you put magnets and it will fit, so the astronaut can breathe between the takes, because we are not like, it's not expensive enough for it to have a fan or something like that. So we are like, yeah. And then so the amount of efforts even for basic minimum and but is too much. And it is that, like, we at least know our basics, right? We know that you can't have an astronaut costume with gaps. If you will see in India, if you will see ads, the astronaut costume, first of all, is a very copy of that white with this blocks. There are pipes hanging, and then there's a massive gap between the chin and the helmet. So anybody will, it will, they will die. I said, like, the astronaut will die like this if there's a gap. There shouldn't be gap. So we had to custom make our costume and just get the right guy and design it. And they were like, there was a long process for it, like, yeah. So the team was there, that they understood that, nah, yeah, we need it, like, yeah. So yeah.
As long as we are recounting the happy memories from the team,
Yeah.
what would be, you would say, the very best day that you had on the set where you thought everything went right, everything was perfect, or there was no such day, basically?
Uh, no, the first day was very bad where everything went wrong. So the second day was that way. You have no
Okay.
idea the things we got stuck at. The biggest thing was we didn't know that the guy will breathe and there will be fog over the helmet, because we did a trial or whatever, but we didn't realize that after 3 minutes, because he never wore more than 3 minutes for the trial. After 3 minutes, there was a massive fog. And so then we were like, oh no, now what do we do? And we tried everything. And then the very simplest solution for any future filmmaker is there is a anti-fog spray. Like, any person who wears specs knows it. For some reason, nobody in our crew knew it. Like, so it took us an hour or 2 hours, but just losing that 2 hours was a massive time. So the second day was better because we had the spray for the
So
helmet.
basically, everything after the first day was better.
Yeah, everything after the first day was a good day. And I know the long take where actually when he's trying to convince the parrot, we had a lot of takes for that. And Ali was, it was a Ramzan day, which is a day where Ali hasn't eaten, or he hadn't had even a sip of water. And it's a heavy costume, and he had done some action and he had to say those takes multiple times.
Yeah.
And I was feeling bad that at a human level I was pushing him to get the right moment. But when he got that final take right, and as he was saying it, I was like, yeah, this time we got it. I mean, I just said it out to him, and there was a relief on his face, like, and that relief actually we kept on the in the shot also. When the finally parrot gets it, the relief is the actual relief that he gets, like. And and this is something I'm just sharing with you. I think even Ali doesn't know that, his audio was connected. So I wear headphones while I shoot,
Yeah.
so I could hear what he was saying. So he was giving himself pep talk. He's like, Ali, just do it. This is an important day. Just pull through. I know you're hungry. Just pull through. This is important. So he was giving himself that pep talk, and I was feeling really bad that in that I'm saying, yeah, but can we just go for one more take? So I know I really pushed him. Yeah. So, but I think eventually it paid off. I hope. Yeah.
No, it really did. And I'm glad you brought up Ali because I wanted to ask at what
Mm,
point did he get on board? Basically, because he's so integral to humanizing the story. And basically,
mm,
he has
mm,
to, and he's basically alone in an
mm,
astronaut costume. It's a very difficult two-hander because you're not playing off a person. There is no real
mm,
person to kind of
mm,
vibe off.
mm,
It's a parrot
mm,
essentially. So
mm.
it's a very challenging situation as well. Uh, what was the process like to get Ali on board? What convinced him, or how did you convince him that this is something that he should be a part of, or was he already convinced, basically, as soon as
No,
he heard the concept?
yeah, so Ali knew my friends Vikrant and Shweta who did Cargo, and they together were doing a show while Cargo was being shot. So Ali had heard of me, and he was like, "Okay, I know of her. Maybe I would want to work with her, like something like that." And I just, maybe he would have not even said it seriously. Maybe he might have said it very casually, but I hung on to it. Like if an actor wants to work with you, you know, you don't want to let that go. So, and then when I was writing the story, we decided to shoot the film on, the entire film is shot on iPhones. So we shot the film in iPhone. I mean,
Okay.
so yeah, the whole, and that no one can tell. And because we really pushed the phone, we never compromised on the shot, and the phone also delivered. So actually, this was towards the end of COVID, and we were just as like, you know, let's shoot something. I have this story very close to my heart for a year or 2 years. It just, the script is also ready, and have not made it in, like, you know, and let's just make something. So the team gradually came together. For some of my team is my common team, like Zenish, who's my VFX guy. Zen is my co-write, but in this he didn't write, but at least even if he doesn't write, he sees oh yeah, let's go make it, like, you know. And then there was we got a cinematographer, and once you get a cinematographer, you know, you more or less have a team. Like of course I had my DA and all those, but yeah, then I said, okay, let's just make it, let's go for it. So I went and I met Ali in his house. I was like, Ali, this is a story. This is a really weird story. I want to make it. Just I took a printout, and then I said, just do it. Like it will just take. I'll take your 3 days, max 4 days. We will do it, and I promise you, it will be a good film. Like it will be something that I also don't know how it will be at the end, but you know that I'll give my 100% to it. And he started laughing. Oh, so you're not asking me, you're just telling me. So I just said, "Ye to kar hi lo, you know, just do this." Like, yeah. So yeah, so and then he himself has a very scientific bent of mind. So he
Okay.
also watches a lot of those. So he had already seen the makings of Gravity and all those films. So he himself is very passionate about science fiction as a genre as well. So I think I didn't know that earlier, but when I met him, I realized, oh, okay, so now you are already like tuned towards it. So let's make more sci-fi, but let's start with this short. And he was game, and then we got the costumes and everything in place, and he was where, yeah, he went through it, and I think he actually felt those emotions also. So he went through the script. He was part of the prep because, you know, the action team, the VFX team, and Ali, all of them were together. So he joined all the Zoom calls, and he would ask all the right questions. So he was really invested in it to do it well. So yeah.
This is a question which kind of either embarrasses you or puts you on the spot, depending on how you feel about it. Now, given that you are one of the foremost voices coming out of the subcontinent in the sci-fi genre, whether you like it or not, you are
Mhm.
now. So we can't take that away from you. What lessons and advice would you offer a young and upcoming sci-fi filmmaker who wants
Yeah.
to embark on their own journey? And I know it's very embarrassing whenever I ask filmmakers these questions about what
Yes.
advice they'd like to give. So
If for all you know, they know more than me, and they can give me advice. Like, yeah. So only thing is that for me, I was trying to do this for last 12 years, and only now things have opened up. So and in terms of because I think there's been more exposure in term because there's been so much Netflix, Amazon, you know, accessible to people. So international films are more accessible. And also I think the current the newer generation that is coming, you know, a lot of them write sci-fi and they share stories with me, and I get like really surprised that some of the stories are very good. So I think yeah, really, I don't know what advice to give, but it's just that what I only advice I have is, like, you know, do it with a lot of sincerity, give your 200%, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. Never think that whatever you're trying to make is smaller than that will require lesser effort or whatever. Like, I just say give your 1000% to whatever you do, and always be at it. Like, grit is so important in this industry, you know. Just don't give up, because there will be people who will not. I mean, you're one of those people who you started with saying your astronaut and his parrot is such a fascinating title, but there will be people you will meet who will say, oh my god, what is that astronaut and parrot? I don't want to see, you know. So you will be meeting people who would not, whose enthusiasm will not match yours. but you have to, kind of kind of pump up yourself and also find your tribe. I think finding your team by gradually making small films was my mantra. Like, I'm as good as my team. Like, I am. So just keep finding a good team.
No, I think those are, I know you were underselling it, but I think those are very important words of wisdom. And whether or not you like The Astronaut or the Parrot as a title, or you hate it or you love it, you can still watch it at our Sydney Science Fiction Film
Yes,
Festival
yes.
upcoming, and we're very excited to show it. I love it, so I'm personally biased, but I'm also in the programming committee, so I'm supposed to love the films I program. So I hope you guys love it too, and you guys can watch it. If you're in Sydney, you can watch it on as part of our International Film Festival showcase on the Sunday, 28th August at Event Cinemas George Street. If you're in Melbourne, you can watch it in Cinema Nova on Sunday, 28th August again at 1 p.m. And otherwise, you can go to our Event Cinemas webpage or Cinema Nova to book your tickets directly, or you can go to www.sydneysciencefilmfestival.com.au for tickets. This has been Virat Nehru. I'm on the programming committee of Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival, and I've been talking to the very wonderful, very talented, and very excited Arati Kadav. Thank you so much, Arati, for your
Thank you
time,
so much.
for your
Thanks a lot.
insights. It's been lovely, 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 lovely to talk to you. And I'm very excited to show this film to the rest of the world, or the rest of the Australian community at least.
Thank you so much. And it's been such a wonderful and insightful interview. I just had a lovely time talking to you. It's one of my very good interviews. Thanks so much. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Thanks. Take care.